Thank you, everybody. Before starting, need to thank Richard, Tim, and the entire crew organizing this amazing event. I hope you guys are having fun. I'm definitely having fun. So the title of my talk is Successfully Raising Bilingual and Multilingual Children, and we're going to be talking money a little bit, how much we spend on our kids to raise them. So, good welcome. It's not so much fun from me. I'll have somebody else do it.
皆さん、ポリグロットコンファへようこそ。Welcome to the Polyglot Conference. Bienvenue au Polyglot Conference. Bienvenidos a Polyglot Conference. 欢迎大家到 Polyglot Conference. Yay!
Oh, welcome. That was a little difficult. It is a staged thing. This is okay. Nothing natural about this. It's from our little balcony in Quebec just a few days ago. This is actually what it looks like right now. It's a ski hill in the back. So, let me show you a more natural scenario. This is, I usually have a lot of videos, but I'm going to limit my videos today. But this is basically the outcome that we're paying for. Okay, all the methods that we're using in our ways to raise our kids comes to this. It's let them have a natural environment to use different languages continuously. So, if I put you a little bit of context here, you see we're in our playing room. We've got au pairs. We've got friends we live in Quebec, so these are French kids, au pairs speaking Spanish, and there's another one speaking English. My wife is going to come in Japanese. I'm holding the camera. I always speak Mandarin with the kids. So it's very rare we catch all 5 languages in 1 minute. So this is a no-cut video, so check this out. Ronnie's 4 years old.
¿La matraca? Sí. ¿No tienes la verde? Ay, se me fue. Pásala de nuevo. ¿Tienes la verde? No está, ¿no?
The Japanese comes in.
何してるの?
¿La verde?
Ajá, ¿dónde está la verde? La matraca verde.
No, es azul.
Pero había una verde.
No es una verde, es una azul.
誰? あ、登ってるの今。黄だ。
Have you made the trek here? Is it done?
Wow.
Excellent me.
Excellent you made it by yourself?
Yeah.
Wow.
真的吗？你这个叫什么？你刚刚在玩什么？
Trains.
So, 4 years old. The vocabulary is very limited. Grammar is all over the place, but that's not important. See how naturally he flows from one language to another without any hesitation. This is his reality since birth. So, there's no thinking, there's no translation involved. And now we'll get into how we do this, okay? Usually my talks involve a lot of, why do we focus on children and all that. We can talk about it offline. You can check out our other videos on Langfest page, on our Langfest channel. There's also a presentation I did at Reykjavik Polyglot Conference about that. But today we're really focusing only on how much things cost. I won't go too deep in each methodology. This is a book that I wrote way back, and I started in 2010. And that was before I had kids, and I finished it shortly after I had my first son. It's mostly based on how I was raised, and I try to develop ideas for parents, but I had no experience at that time when I wrote this book. Now, 7 years down the road, I've tested many of these ideas by myself, and I'll show you some of the results and the costs. Okay. So this book is called Pampers to Polyglot, 7 Ideas for Raising Multilinguals Like Me. So it was based on my own experience growing up, and we've applied this to our kids. First idea is speaking different languages in the house. Very simple. We can all think of this type of methodology. Idea 2 is applying language learning opportunities in favorite pastimes, hobbies. Number 3 is you can go out as parents, find new friends or allies who share your mission to raise multilingual children. 4, setting clear milestones for achievements related to language learning. 5, international school. 6, send children abroad. 7 is actually moving the whole family abroad. So it gets sort of more and more expensive as we go down the list. And so presentation is very simple. We'll just follow these ideas one by one. First one, speaking different languages in the house. You saw a little bit in the previous video. We're talking about family, okay? Having daddy speak one language, mommy speak another language, grandparents, relatives, you name it. The imagination's the limit. We've introduced artificially an idea called au pairs. I'll get into that. And this year we started something new that's receiving exchange students from abroad, okay? So first, my family. We live in Quebec, Canada. So the community language is French. But in the house we have, I'm here, okay? I'm half Taiwanese, half Japanese. My father is Taiwanese, my mother is Japanese. My wife is Japanese, and her parents are both Japanese, and they live just 2.5 hours from here in Nagasaki. Okay, so under the same roof, we're all here, the 3 kids. Ronnie, he's 7 years old. Nika is 5, almost 6. And Akila is 2, almost 3 in a few weeks. So English is not really present in the house within just the family. We have mostly Japanese and Mandarin going on in the house, just within the family. So the 3 kids, once again, just a little sidetrack. We've got a 4th one coming up in April. Yeah. But don't have any experience with them yet. We'll see. So within the core inside the house, but also our extended family in Japan. When we come to Japan, family in Taiwan, that's another, a big source of input in the Japanese and Mandarin. And even when we're in Canada, in the house, we use technology like Skype, and we have them talk to my family in Taiwan or in Japan, and they have to use that language. They recognize who they're talking to, and that's it. It's just that channel. They switch and switch. So how much does this cost? Well, a big nothing, right? Everybody has family, and even if you're not in a cross-cultural marriage, there's extended family that you can think of, or maybe friends. But this is just one way to have proximity, have people assign a language, rather than many cases where I see immigrant families who maybe a Chinese family goes to the States, but the parents, instead of speaking their native Mandarin to the kids, they actually speak, sort of a broken English, and thinking that it's a very, it's a big burden for the kids. That I find is unfortunate, but we have our choices. So we don't do that. We definitely have every family member just use their native language. So next item, this is a really artificial way of creating opportunities within the house that we've introduced. We've decided, other than the community language and the languages in the family, we thought Spanish would be something that's going to be relatively important in their lives if they decide to stay in North America, where we live right now. So we found a way through employing au pairs. And I've got a few videos here just to give you a sense of how effective this method was for us. So the top left, okay, this is Angelica. She's our first au pair. Now we're on au pair number 8 right now as we speak. She's at home with us right now. So this is au pair number 1. And here is 2015, August 14th. This is literally 1 week after we had Angelica come. So this is 1 week of exposure, starting from 0 for our kids. So this is Ronnie.
Uno, dos,
Ronnie's 3, by the way.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So he already knew a little bit of English, so he's saying one more time. But very interested in the person, good interaction, and Spanish just comes in. Okay, so other examples. Here's my daughter playing with Andrea. This is au pair number 2.
Un avestruz.
Nika's also about 3 at this time. Doing something they love, spending time together, bonding. All the things that you can't really find in textbooks. Right? Sharing.
Me gustan los camellos.
A mí me gusta la camello.
Okay, and this is our youngest, or current youngest.
¿Dónde están tus manos? Manos. Sí.
So he couldn't speak yet.
Nariz. Nariz. ¿Dónde está tu nariz? Sí. ¿Tu cabeza? ¿Cabeza? Sí.
Acabas, oso.
¿Tu boca? ¿Y tus ojos? ¿Ojos? ¿Dónde están tus ojos?
He's getting distracted now. Let me stop that. Okay, so once again, to tell you the effectiveness of this strategy, I'm going to come back to Angelica. Here, I will show you a scene. This is a little short of 2 months since Angelica was with us. So Ronnie started from 0 Spanish. And this shows you a situation where Angelica's playing with Ronnie. I'm holding the camera, Mandarin. And my wife, Yuko, was actually in Japan at that time, so she's on Skype. Okay, she's going to talk to the kids through Skype in Japanese. So there's 3 languages within this little clip. 2 months.
Cuenta hasta 5.
No,
Yo.
no, sí.
Yo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Ronnie's 3 years old, okay, just playing. Okay, don't get distracted by Nika, she's going to hit her head. No,
¿Abajo de la mesa?
okay, don't get distracted. Abajo de la mesa. Okay. 2 months.
Eso es horrible.
Okay. So he comes to mommy. Mommy's not even there. She's on the phone.
真的吗？哇，你那么厉害啊！
And then right back to Angelica. No hesitation, no, mistakes in, attributing the language to a specific person. Full of grammatical errors, but that's not important. So this natural environment, natural way of getting input is what we're getting out of this method. So au pairs. How much do au pairs cost? In our situation, in our case, okay, so we're looking at, there's various costs, different stuff, but ballpark, I'd say about $1,000. If you spend $1,000 a month, pays for travel, pays for insurance, pays for visa, pocket money. It's something you talk to your au pair and you negotiate with your au pair. And we average about 8 to 10 months a year. So there are times we don't have an au pair, but 8 to 10. So about, give or take, $10,000 we would spend on au pairs every year. Sometimes we have a second au pair. and we shorten the total number of months. So we usually just keep one au pair for Spanish. That's, she's there constantly. And sometimes we add English just to sort of boost the English. In our environment, we do have relatively lots of inputs for English, so we don't focus too much on English, but sometimes we do. But it is yes.
What language do you and your wife speak together?
Japanese. Japanese. Yes, this comes.
Kids don't get confused.
No.
They know you speak Japanese. What's the
That is irrelevant because it's a habit. You know, many people here speak different languages, but there's one language that you associate with a specific person, and if you speak another one, you know it's weird. That's what we're creating. That is exactly what we're creating in this situation. Okay. Hence, we're not very keen on doing Monday French Day, Tuesday Spanish Day. We assign a language to a person, and that's it. That's it. So a lot of it, that's why even though I speak Spanish, I don't teach my kids Spanish. Okay. How do we give the description, job description to the au pairs? We usually say your first mission is to speak Spanish with the kids. That's the first mission. Spend time, quality time, with the kids. And they can, help out with some chores in the house. But it's really, if anything, spend time with the kids. That's mission number one. And then they help out with, wash clothes, laundry, or dishes and whatnot. Okay? You have another one?
Yeah, so are your children going to preschool or kindergarten or anything like that?
So my oldest is in 2nd grade, and then the next one is in kindergarten, and the youngest is in daycare.
So your au pair probably helps them get ready to go to school.
Yes,
and things
absolutely, absolutely. Okay?
How was your language environment when you were young?
Very similar, very similar. When I grew up,
Speaking with
I spoke Mandarin with my father, Japanese with my mother, Taiwanese in the streets, Hakka with my relatives in Shinzu, and I went to an American school, so I spoke English at school. So I was saying, au pairs, sometimes we have a second au pair who speaks English with us, with the kids, and 2 au pairs becomes quite a financial strain on our family, and then we've been thinking how we can still have that input, but in a different way. And we thought of exchange students. Okay, so this year we're trying this out, where we have an exchange student from Switzerland, and she's in charge of English with the kids. She speaks exclusively English with the kids. She's going to a French high school, so I help her with the French. So it's kind of different, as the au pairs usually want English, so I speak English with the au pairs. So anyways, exchange student, they're also not, free in that they don't pay us anything, we don't pay them anything, but we have to give them free food and board. So I sort of put it around $200, $300 a month. There are organizations that will pay you as host parents. We also registered with one of those organizations, but they didn't have a student for us this year. But we have one this year from AFS, which is one of the biggest organizations for exchange students. So they don't pay us. We basically have costs running around $200, $300 a month. So that's much cheaper than having au pairs. And like I said earlier, English is not a big emphasis for us. We want to have it there to have constant input, but not very, very strong. Au pairs, they're hired for that. But exchange students, they're here to study and to experience Canada or Quebec. So I can't expect them to do, 30 hours spend 30 hours with the kids. But we do say, okay, about an hour a day, give or take. We work it out, You always have to work it out. We have got 8 au pairs so far. Every one of them's different. Every one of them's wonderful. But they have different needs, and we work it out. We find a way, we communicate. You have to learn to communicate well, because you're having a complete stranger come into your house. So, I start with the assumption that everybody's nice, and there's miscommunication sometimes, but we work it out. okay? I've never had to send anybody back to their country so far, okay? And nobody stormed out of my house yet. So we've always found a way to do it. So summarizing everything, this is our family's multilingual environment. My wife and my mother, who's in the middle here, is in charge of Japanese. Myself, my father in Mandarin. The local community language is French, so the friends of our kids. And like I said, we had mainly a Spanish au pair, and it's Mexico. Okay, we consistently hire from Mexico. And sometimes English au pair or exchange student. So that's it for the family environment. Idea number 2, finally, we're almost 26 minutes now. Idea number 2, I'll go over this relatively quickly. This is just normal, I think. It's not, way out there. Most of you do this yourself in your own language learning. It's applying language learning, elements into whatever you love, whatever you do. Try to find a way to incorporate language learning in there. So my kids love cartoons, just like any kids. So we buy DVDs, we load them up in the car. We're living in Canada, but we can watch Doraemon in Japanese. When we go to Taiwan, we have Netflix. In Taiwan, you have Paw Patrol, which is like the Anpanman and the Doraemon of the West. All the kids love this, and it's in Mandarin. They love it, and they could just watch it over and over and over and over and over. What better way to learn a language? Books, of course, books in different languages. These are Mandarin books. Here, my wife just ordered all these books, sent it to the hotel I was in Tokyo a few days ago. So I've got like 32 kilos of books in my suitcase to go back. All right. So, how much do these cost? Well, these cost, the cost of Netflix subscription or cost of DVDs or books or whatever. But there's a different way of thinking about this. If your kids love books and they read, in your native tongue, you buy books for them anyways, right? So if you buy it in a different language, doesn't mean you're actually spending more. It's just piggybacking on whatever you're doing. Kids love books, just give them books in the target language. That's really all we're doing. Okay? And the same thing for, apps. We give our kids an iPad. We're not against that. We're not against technology. We're against them using it 10 hours a day, but they have their timer and they play games, and some of them is, related to learning languages. They have their Doraemon kanji writing games where they can score a number of points and go up in levels. Gamify your learning. It's good even for adults. Ronnie loves playing piano, so we have this subscription of Simply Piano, and he learned how to read music and play piano on his own just with this app. And there's English in there, instructions and everything in English. So that's another way of just having that input. We live in Quebec. English is limited, but this is one way we have English input. How much do these cost? Well, again, the app costs, $5, $10, whatever, subscriptions on a monthly basis, or once again, philosophically, it could be zero, depending on how you think about it. Toys, same thing. They love toys. Then find, this is a model car. You need to assemble it. There's a manual in there. Do it in Japanese. My mother did that to me when I was a kid. I didn't know how to read, but you'll find a way to make it happen if you want to play with your toy. Okay, so this is intrinsic motivation. Just find a way to extract that motivation and get them to learn. Sports is also a fantastic way. We live in Quebec, once again. Most people, 99% of the people in our town speak French. But you can seek out some folks who are bilinguals, perfect bilinguals. So here's Ronnie's coach. He's a francophone, but he speaks very good English. And I asked him to speak only in English with Ronnie so that he associates Coach Luca with English. Every time he goes, it's English. That's it. He loves skating, so I pay for skating lessons. But that English lesson or English exposure is free. Okay? Same thing with Nika's horseback coach. So this is Christina. She's actually an Anglophone who came to Quebec. So you seek them out. Right? And when we go to Taiwan, we put them in teams, rollerblading teams. Here's my youngest. at the Konami swimming center in Nagasaki. Here they are in Taiwan. So sports, the kids interact with other kids. If it's in Taiwan, then they have to use that language. It's great opportunities to use those languages. And you want them to do sports. So, 2, 3, 4 birds with one stone. And sports is also great, especially, learning about other values, teamwork, hard work. All this is great. It's just learning many things at the same time, okay? And the cost is registration, memberships, whatever, okay? Unlike au pairs where we do it specifically for languages, these are other things that we're just trying to piggyback on whatever we already do, whatever the kids already love, okay? Next, yourself. You can go out and find new friends or allies to see, get more information on how to learn, how to raise multilingual children. This is, it's actually working on the parents. So you can find your kids' friends, parents, or you have colleagues from other countries, gatherings to find like-minded people, expert forums. Those are the examples that I have here. So here I've got an English-speaking family in Quebec that we visit often. They struggle with French, so we exchange ideas on how to get your kids to learn French. Same thing here. This family, we exchange so much ideas that they also hired an au pair. So that's how much, we help each other out. This is when we were in Japan. So here's my colleague, American colleague, here with Koreans. You get the idea. Go out, I'm sure in your companies or your schools, you're going to find people who are like-minded and who can give you ideas, and you can exchange ideas with them too. So again, there's no cost to that. It's something you do already, right? There are things like Meetup. I'm sure you're familiar. It could be for yourself, but think about it. You could find other people who want to raise multilingual, bilingual kids. There's a good Facebook group that I follow called Multilingual Parenting, run by a very nice lady called Rita Rosenbach. I also have a little group, so if you want to jot that down and come ask me questions there, that's also great. There's YouTube, of course. YouTube is also a great forum. Go find videos where you see people teaching kids to speak different languages, and you can ask that YouTuber, their ideas, their inputs. And Rotary clubs. There's many associations and places where you can go and just find these types of communities. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. In Japan, there's a relatively famous organization called the Hippo Family Club. Okay, so they've emphasized on 7 languages at home. And of course, we have here's a great forum, right? You can talk to me. You can talk to Richard. Richard Simcott also is raising his daughter in different languages. Different people have different experiences. Tim also, Alex, Professor Arguelles also talks about raising multilingual children. So there's a lot of people here that you can talk to. And the costs here, look, if it's online, it's minimal. Physical events, you pay for a dinner, memberships, your flight to Polyglot conference. You can do the estimates. So here's idea number 4. I won't develop on this too much. I don't even have any examples because we're not there yet. So far, I've really talked about intrinsic motivation, what your kids love or what you already do. Now, idea number 4 is more about extrinsic factors. So sort of setting like rewards for achieving specific language-related targets. Maybe your kid finishes a book in a target language, then you give them an hour of iPad or whatever. No, that's just, you get the idea, a reward for something. It's I don't recommend this to be your sole method. It's not a very sustainable method, but it's good if you combine this with other methods. So there's that per se I can't develop too much. We don't use it quite yet. I'm sure I will later down the line. If you get good grades, you get your bike, that kind of thing. Sort of bribery also I think comes into that. But it works, sporadically. I mean, on the spot. Idea number 5 is international schools. Idea number 7 is moving the family abroad. I had to lump these two ideas together because the way we apply these ideas, they sort of mix together. It's not exactly just one or the other. Because when we talk about international schools, we think about you living in your country and sending them to a school that speaks a different language. You have INTA, like in Tokyo, you can go to an INTA. You can send your kids to an English-speaking school. Same thing with any country, I think. And the other is actually moving the family to a different country. And we actually did both, okay? So in 2014, I was still living in Japan at the time. I brought Ronnie. He was almost 2 at the time, and I brought him to Taiwan, thinking I could get him more exposure in Mandarin. At the same time, we sent him to an American school, in American daycare, or English-speaking daycare in Taiwan. So he got a lot of Mandarin from the community and English from school. And in 2015, I brought the whole family back to Canada, where we are today. So we sort of mixed the idea of moving to a different country and also sending to an international school. So in this case, this is a school in Taipei, a little daycare. This is where Ronnie met his first love also. But we just thought, rather than sending them to a local Mandarin school, he'll get enough input from the community, from our families, that why not start another language? So this is really when he started learning English. So he had Mandarin, English, and Japanese when Mom visited. Mom was staying back in Japan at the time. And my mother also visited. My mother is Japanese. She visited Taiwan to help us out with the kids. So at that time, there's Japanese input. So these 3 languages are the ones that Ronnie grew up with until he was 3. Okay, so the cost for an international daycare in Taiwan is about $12,000 US, give or take. Okay, I did a little bit of research in Japan. It's approximately 20 to 25,000. 200万, 250万. It's sort of the ballpark in Tokyo, according to my friends. And of course, if you move your whole family, then you gotta consider rent, travel. Those are other variables that you have to consider. So it's not to be taken lightly, but you have to think about what are you striving for, how much exposure, how much input, how much quality education, I guess, in that language, rather than studying a language. You're studying in that language. So those are that's our experience for about a year and a half in Taipei with the international daycare. And finally, I come back to my last idea, and that's number 6, is to send children abroad. But here, once again, we sort of have a modified version of this, in that we don't just send the kids abroad, we actually go with them every year. So this is our family's yearly travel schedule. We spent 8 months in Canada, from late August to late April. And then from late April to late August, we're in Asia. We're in 2 months in Japan, in Nagasaki, about 2 hours away from here. And then in the last 2 months, July, August, we're in Taiwan. So the whole family, and this is, we live in our suitcases. This is what we do every April and every August, okay? Now, what do? We put them in local schools. So the middle one here, this is just one photo of them in their local school in Quebec. But here on the left, this is their schools in Nagasaki. And on the right, this is their school or daycare in Taiwan. So again, just like sports, other than languages, you're learning the local way of life, the local culture. I mean, you're really living it, right? Here you've got your Pika Pika no 1年生. This is the typical Japanese first grader. They all look like this. They all have their backpacks. This is culture. This is uniformity in Japan. They learn about respect. They learn about timeliness, cleanliness, And here's a very typical, this is called a undokai, so this a sports day. Every school has this, okay? So this is Japanese culture at its best, okay? Not just the Japanese language. So same thing in Taiwan, okay? So they're making friends for life, okay? These kids, they go to the same school every year, and they see the same friends, and as they grow, I have my friends on Facebook since, when I was 7, 8, or 9. So I'm hoping that they're going to keep this network for life. Okay, so this is, what are the costs incurred? Okay, for us, we live mainly in Canada. My residency is in Canada, and I pay taxes in Canada, so the school there, for now, it's a public school. There's no cost. And for Japan, 2 months in Japan, we're also leveraging the Japanese passport that our kids have, since mother's Japanese. So they have their Japanese citizenship. My wife is able to keep a residency registration in Nagasaki, so that allows them to go to school for free in the public institutions. And the reason why we come at the end of April is that they have to join in April in order for them to be considered like kind of automatically for that school. Whereas if you go into May, then it's already the next month, because school year starts on 1st of April. So you have to join within April in order to make that automatic registration. After that, you have to be on a waiting list, and we're not sure. So we always do this in late April, sort of for that logistics reason. And finally, Taiwan. We go to Taiwan for July, August, and that's where it costs us. It's approximately $500 a kid. We've got 3. It's 1,500 times 2 months, so $3,000 for that. Okay, that we spend on education. Local school. This is excluding rent. We rent a place in Taiwan. Travel, of course. So there you go. That's sort of the ballpark. Okay. Yes.
Are the schools okay with that? Like managing
Yeah.
the school,
So-
all those kind of things?
So we definitely talk to the school in advance, of course, and the school tells us they're happy to have foreign kids come in and sort of give a diversity, a layer of diversity in their studentship. That's what we got as feedback this year. And for the school in Taiwan, we go back every year, and they are so happy with our kids. Like when this year our youngest started, and we asked them, do you have space? They said, we'll always make space for your kids. You have to build a good relationship with the schools. Okay. Unfortunately, if your kids don't behave very well, that could cause, reduction in probability of acceptance. You have to go out. We usually go out a year in advance to visit the school, to talk to the staff, and find out. So, and we've taken risks. For the Taiwanese school, the first year when we went, we were there a few months in advance while my father was there, and he went to talk to the principal and said, no, we don't accept short terms. And we didn't have a school until the kids were on the spot in Taiwan. And then we went again. We said, come on, please give us a little space. And said, okay, we're going to test you out. And then the rest is history. We always get a lot of feedback from the schools saying our kids have very high ability to adapt. This is something that I'm very proud of, because change is something that they experience every day since they were born. They're not afraid of change. They're not afraid of people coming in and out of their lives. They know a goodbye is never forever, and they're not afraid. So that's sort of how they are able to adapt very well to different schools and different situations, and make friends and continue to interact. Okay. And additional benefits, of course, of moving around is deepening our bonds with our family in Canada and in Taiwan and Japan. They make friends from in different countries, and these are all very important things that I think that it's hard to find in language schools in this sense. Okay, I'm going to have to move forward. Just just so I could wrap up everything, this is my last example, I think, just exchange programs. I don't have any experience yet, but since we received the girl from AFS, I sort of checked out how much it costs to actually send a kid somewhere, and also summer camps. This is just an example, but you could Google summer camps in whatever country you want to go to, or within your area in different languages. I'm sure you'll find something. But I would say, rule of thumb, just very generally, a camp like that is like $50, $100 a day. Send them off for a week, it costs you like $700, I think. Okay, exchange programs, I think it's somewhere around 7,000 to 10,000 for that period. Depending on the period, maybe 10,000 for like a year. All right. So I'm going to wrap up soon with the take-home message number 1. Different costs for different things, but I hope you don't think that more expensive means better or would guarantee success. Okay. I think what you want to think about is the quality exposure in that target language you're getting for the kids. That's a better predictor of success. So there are people who, I don't know, expats who go to a different country and come back with zero learning in that language, because if you're not exposing your kids to the local language, if you watch TV from back home all the time but through internet and whatnot, so that's not going to work. And take-home message number 2 is sometimes expensive is just a little illusion. Okay, when you think about it, we talked a little bit about nanny costs or babysitter costs. They're about, I would say, $15, $20 an hour in Canada. An au pair costs me about $10,000 a year. Now, is that expensive? Is that not expensive? Now, think about it. They're there assuming 300 days at approximately 5 hours a day. So we're looking at 30 hours a week, approximately. That comes down to, the math comes down to $6, $7 an hour. And also, importantly, that's not per kid. Because I have 3 kids doesn't mean I pay 3 times as much, right? We do dilute the exposure a little bit because we have more kids, but if they're taking care of all 3 at the same time, it's comparable. And also the added benefit is au pairs who sort of help with housework and whatnot. So there are different ways of looking at this cost. Is it really expensive or not? It's up to you and your budget and what are you aiming for, okay? So there you go. I hope you can give your children the gift of the world through languages and find the right combinations through the methods I've explained today. These are just examples. Definitely, think of how you can apply it to your life and something that fits your living context and budget, of course. So I can field a few more questions, maybe, if you want. All right, gentleman over there.
I have 2 questions, quick ones. First of all, I want to know what you do for a living.
Okay, good. Okay, I work from home. Okay, so what I do may not be as important as the fact that I work from home. I work with my computer and a phone. I work in healthcare industry. I run in clinical studies, but I'm just a project manager. So the team on the ground is in Japan. So I work with the team in Japan. My working hours start after dinner in Canada. Okay, so put the kids to bed and I work for a few hours. And then during the day I get to play with the kids.
Between the kids, what's the preferred language, or is it regarding the environment?
Yeah, between the kids, there's 2 answers. One is first, who else is in the room? Okay? And that's very important. That's very important because that means that they're aware of the context and they're aware of who else is listening to the conversation. If I'm with the kids, they'll talk in Mandarin. But an important point is, what do they speak when they're alone? And that often defaults to Japanese. Now, at the current time, I think Japanese is a very strong language that they have, and a very emotional language because mom, I guess, I don't know. But if it's the nannies and the kids, they would speak in Spanish. The kids would speak Spanish amongst each other. So that shows that they have the command of whatever language that they're using at the time. Okay? All right, thank you.